Good morning, and thank you, Chief Richard, for the introduction. As Chief Richard discussed, SB 678 was truly a turning point for probation to further enhance our unique approach to the criminal justice system and public safety. Prior to SB 678, while we knew the types of programming and services that we wanted to provide, in Kings County, we simply did not have the resources to provide evidence-based programming to our adult population. With large caseloads and few resources at our disposal, probation officers' interaction with their clients was more transactional than it was relational. We ran short on providing people that element of hope that they needed to ignite the desire for true change. However, SB 678 funds were a game changer. It was truly the missing piece. We were able to lower our caseload sizes and begin the process of officers building relational foundations with their clients. In Kings County, not only did we lower caseload sizes, we were able to offer residential treatment beds and start a day reporting center to provide clients with real-life resources that allowed that element of hope to come alive for themselves in their lives. We are able to provide job training, educational services, financial planning and responsibility workshops, and we work with community partners to secure employment, which provides the stability for continued success of our clients. SB 678 funds allowed us the opportunity to train our officers to provide direct services when needed. This not only benefited our probation officers, but our clients as well. And additionally, we were able to far better secure the safety of our communities. Kings County Probation was definitely not alone in transforming the work we do with our clients. SB 678 impacted every county throughout the state. We're about to hear about the tremendous impact on one of those counties. Marin County Probation has been able to do incredible things with their SB 678 funding. And as we are about to hear, the changes they implemented and the evolution of their approach to community safety serves to ensure a lasting impact on the lives of their clients. I would now like to introduce Chief Mike Daly, who will introduce you to his esteemed panel of presenters for our first county spotlight of the day. Thank you.
Morning, everybody. I'm Mike Daly. I'm the Chief Probation Officer for the County of Marin, and thank you, Karen Pank, and your whole CPOC staff for putting this wonderful event together. I was telling her, it's like planning a wedding. This is huge. This is really nice, and she feels it, believe me, and so does her staff. The speakers today are Supervisor Dave Cole. He's going to be speaking to us about training. Supervisor Jeff Virzi is going to be speaking to us about 678's role relative to caseload size and relationship building, which we all know through the evidence that the better relationship, the better outcomes with our clients. And our Restorative Justice Coordinator, Cindy Ayala, will be speaking to us about Marin County's Restorative Justice program that we've had up and running for over 3.5 years now. And our star is Kylie Townsend. She will also be up here later with Chief Leach on a panel, but she may be speaking a little bit this morning as well. But before we get started, I wanted to talk to you about another 678 idea that I had many years ago, and it was our Wall of Change program, celebrating the successes of people like Kylie Townsend. And I want you to listen closely to what the clients are saying and how they are connected to what we're going to be speaking about today when they talk about training, caseload size, and restorative justice principles. The Wall of Change video and the celebration of success is directly related to Senate Bill 678 and all of the training that we got on trauma, addiction, motivational interviewing, offering services and hope versus the old days of fear and desperation amongst our clients. And with Kylie, restoring folks back into their communities, back with their families, and certainly back to their children. And so that's our success, and that is public safety. Just one quick note, listening to all this, I see a lot of chiefs in the room, and certainly we're going to be celebrating some legislators today and former legislators, but it's really the work of the folks on the line who did these works, who took the training and implemented these changes and went out and dealt with our clients in a new way that was never possible prior to SB 678. So I'm going to let my staff take it away and go for it.
Good morning, everyone. My name is David Cole with Marin County Probation. Thank you to CPOC for allowing us to be here today, and thank you all for all your hard work and dedication to our line of probation work. I do mean that. In the Wall of Change video that we all just witnessed, we did see some common things that I think that are very important to bring up and bring to light. Some of the things that we saw was the defendants mentioning the familiar faces that they saw when they came into the probation office and saying, if they can do it, then I can do it. That seeing some of those people on those frames and on the wall gave them hope that they would be able to make these changes in their lives and be productive members of society. We also saw the common theme of them being provided the resources and that they've never had the celebrated success in their lives. Maybe they've never graduated high school, college, or completed anything successfully, and now we're recognizing them for this. The reinforcement for their positive behavior was mentioned several times. Being held accountable by the probation officer was mentioned. Then the structure. Structure is a huge thing for the people that we work with in the community. They need those support. They need to have somebody that they can reach out and call, as Tim Rodriguez had stated. On that subject, being able to reach out and actually sit down and talk to your probation officer on a human level is one of the things that we heard several times. And I think that that's really comes from us having reduced caseload sizes and being able to spend more time in interacting with them and finding out who they are as a person, not just what their crime was, but finding out what their needs are, what their risk level is, and supervising them accordingly. The main thing for me is just seeing that these offenders on the Wall of Change are proud, and they've made some huge changes in their lives, whether that's just reuniting with family, reuniting with their children, but being productive members of society. And I can't be any more proud of the program that Chief Daly brought to our county and how it's still up and running on a daily basis. So thank you, Chief. None of that Wall of Change would have been possible without the passing of Senate Bill 678. That bill was established to reduce prison population and, more importantly, bring evidence-based practices locally, and especially into the county of Marin. It provided us with monetary funds to help serve those. We implemented evidence-based practices in Marin County. We implemented new trainings, and we equipped POs with field training, safety, and equipment. EBP, or the evidence-based practices, are those outcome-focused approaches and interventions that have been scientifically tested and proven to be effective. They have definable outcomes that are measurable and considered effective to reduce risk and recidivism. When risk is reduced, there's fewer victims, and we have more community safety. Reduced prison population is a mission. Implementing the evidence-based practices, we implemented such things as the risk assessment tools, identifying true risk and needs and risk levels. DPOs were able to create case plans that were specifically to identify with the offender's needs. We had appropriate risk levels now of low, medium, high risks, and we weren't over-supervising those low-risk offenders that could cause more harm than good. And we're able to spend more time with a fewer caseload, meeting with those high-risk offenders and really working with them to find out what they needed to be successful. Motivational interviewing was a huge thing for us that we brought into our department. It was a proven successful interviewing style, and it strengthens the offender's motivation and commitment to change. Motivational interviewing has proven to be successful not only for the probation department, but with our partners in the community as well. We had cognitive behavioral therapy groups such as Thinking for Change conducted both in our local jail and within the community. We had community partners trained, probation officers trained, and jail staff trained, and that program is running throughout the county. Funding. That's a huge thing that we all needed that we didn't have in the adult world before. Funding was able to get us trained staff, encouraged, just lost my thought. We were able to train staff and encourage internal and external partners to do so as well. It was our view that if everybody was on the same page, we would all have an understanding and a common understanding of how probation works efficiently and effectively with our clients. Getting partners buy-in and letting them know that probation has moved away from the unscientific practices and now using evidence-based practices and implementing new policies and procedures for violations of their probation. Within this, I mean that we've instituted a behavior matrix tool that wasn't just a first violation, we throw them into jail, but having a system that we would look at to find out what appropriate level of sanction was for the violation. We use graduated sanctions as well, where we're not just throwing somebody in custody for their first violation, but maybe giving them other programs or things that they can do rather than spending time in jail. One of those things was called our behavior intervention tools, small little homework assignments or essays that the offenders could work on at home and bring back and have something to discuss in the office with their probation officer and have them take a look at the behaviors deep inside for themselves. We utilized our local detox center for positive test or drug use rather than versus local jail time. It's our belief in Marin County that if everybody's trained in evidence-based practices, that we'll all be sharing the same language and understanding the department's mission and goal. With proper funding, probation officers now supervise offenders in a more intimate setting, enabling them to have discussions on case plans and document progress. Officers can meet with offenders at their residence, place of employment, at treatment programs, in the community, or at other settings. With all this, meeting offenders out in the community became the need for equipment and more field training. SB 678 was a great source for funding for all of those things. SB 678 funded the training for staff and field work, purchased safety equipment for our officer safety in the field, our clothing, vehicles, a simulator machine that's a training device that's used around the training for field work of use of force and de-escalation training, and a magnetometer for officer safety when clients are coming in to meet with us, all purchased through SB 678. All these are necessary components needed for officers to be safe in the field and to maintain the department's mission of offering rehabilitation services to maintain and increase community safety by having reduced caseload size with our higher risk offenders. In summary, the funds from Senate Bill 678 dramatically changed how we supervise people in the adult division in Marin County. We finally have resources to do our job and get great results. A safer community for all. That is what our public expects from us, and that's what we strive for. Thank you very much for your time. I'd like to introduce Jeff Virzi.
Good morning. I'm Jeff Virzi, Marin County Probation. I supervise the high-risk unit. So I have direct contact with the clients that we deal with. I was a deputy before SB 678 went into effect, and I'm proud to say that I was one of the deputies who helped seek out programs and other things that we could use now to help our probationers succeed. With the funding from Senate Bill 678, our high-risk, high-needs caseload numbers went from about 70 to 35. We specifically targeted clients who were on one step from entering state prison for the first time or had already been to prison several times. We case planned for the highest risk and the highest needs. These new objectives enabled field supervision deputies to get out into the community to effectively build better relationships with their clients, seek out better treatment providers, and collaborate with employment and housing opportunities. Senate Bill 678 funds were instrumental in assisting our probation department in setting up checkpoints in the community where the highest risk clients had difficulties with transportation and other services. These checkpoints reduced a significant amount of probation violations, or PET revs, for failure to report. We hired experienced recovery coaches to assist in clients transitioning from the jail to the community for treatment and employment opportunities. We were also able to pay for bed spaces at the community detox center, and as a result, reduce the overall jail population. Today, we use a detox center still, and that is one of our graduated sanctions in lieu of going to jail. We also now have the ability to reserve bed space at sober living homes to reduce homelessness amongst the substance abuse users. Finally, we started to help with the development of real job training and placement opportunities. This included purchasing incentive cards for transportation, gasoline, and food. The results of these opportunities had significant impacts on long-term employment with benefits for clients and their families. This opportunity reduced a significant amount of recidivism. A quick example of that is we were supervising a gang in Marin, and they were also facing state prison sentences. And law enforcement knew them, we knew them, and they were on the street dealing drugs and things like that. We ended up taking a couple of those guys out of the gang, and we drove them to San Ramon to a laborers union. We paid for the dues, we paid for the clothing, we paid, gave them gasoline cards to go to and from on weekends because it's an in-house training facility. We gave them Safeway food cards so they could get through the school with food, and they graduated. And before we sent them there, they didn't believe we could do it. But with SB 678 funding, we did it. And then as a result, we got them jobs right away, and we basically destroyed that gang. Those guys went to work for the union. They were making more money per week, and they had medical benefits for their whole family and their children. And to this day, we have great relationships with those people. And the other members in the gangs eventually came to us asking us for help. Even though they weren't on probation, we'd still help. But the idea is that's one simple example of just taking some of the funding and thinking outside of the box and actually going to work with it. Senate Bill 678 enabled our department to establish a matrix of available services to our clients in the community that we serve. Several of the clients who were from our long-term high-risk population never re-entered the system, this ending a cycle of dysfunction that had plagued them and their families. And I'd like to introduce Kylie, who's one of our success cases, and thank you very much.
And before we go. Great job, Jeff, and Kylie will be, again, speaking up here, but I just wanted Kylie to talk about the benefit of the relationship that you had with your probation officer when we were able to lower the caseload so our probation officers can spend more time individually with their clients. Maybe Kylie can tell us the benefits and how that worked out for her.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Kylie Townsend. I have been on probation in Marin County for the last 3 years, and my relationship with my probation officer has been absolutely crucial to my success. When we come in, it's a really, scary, overwhelming, experience, and we have all these ideas about what probation is, and like in our minds, probation is the enemy, right? Like we are immediately not trusting. I know for me, like the first time I met my probation officer, I remember him being super like stone cold, and I immediately wanted to keep him as far away from me and my life as possible. I didn't want him to know anything about me. I wasn't willing to talk to him. I remember like the first couple interactions we had was, one-word answers. And then all of that changed when I had a relapse. I had been, on the run for a couple months, and I ended up back in custody. And during that time, my probation officer would text me and be like, you need to report to the office now, you need to report to the office now. And then those text messages stop, and it was like, just let me know you're safe, just let me know you're alive. And that's when I really kind of started realizing, like, I'm not just a caseload. Like, there was some actual, like, human feeling, you know what I mean? Like, actual feelings behind that. And when I ended up back in custody in Marin County, my first interaction with him, he said, you scared me. And that was, I remember, like, kind of stepping back and being like, wow, like, he actually cares. And that was when I started to build that trust with him. And we built a relationship, and he, became a mentor to me. He really helped me through a lot. And what was so helpful for me was he was somebody that I trusted, but was also going to hold me accountable when I messed up. I needed that. I grew up not having, any structure, any boundaries. I didn't know anything about that, and I just ran wild and did what I want, and I had, suffered no consequences. So somebody to kind of, keep me in check and, put me in jail when I needed to, that was helpful for me, which I hate admitting, but it's true. And yeah, with this SB 678 funding, it was, it's provided so many amazing services to me, I can't even tell you. I could go on and on for hours, but, sober living was absolutely crucial, and my recovery coach was absolutely amazing. And I don't know how much time I have, but
No, that's great.
yeah.
You have more time,
Okay.
Chief, but, just wanted to give you a quick taste and some, real powerful insight from Kylie and the benefits of small caseloads and the relationship building that I spoke to earlier and that you saw in the film, particularly with some of these clients, namely Tim Rodriguez. So lastly, I'd like to hear from our Restorative Justice Coordinator, Cindy Ayala, who will talk about our Restorative Justice program, all funded by Senate Bill 678.
Good morning, and I'm glad that you'll be able to hear a little bit more from Kylie later and more about her story, and hopefully Chief Leach will be able to ask some questions in terms of this funding and how those funds allowed for those services and resources to be allocated and given to her so that she can be successful. As Chief Daly said, my name is Cindy Ayala, and I run a restorative justice program for the Marin County Probation Department. I'm really glad that this department decided to not just do what it was doing with these funds, but think outside the box and really start thinking about just different initiatives that they could actually undertake. And restorative justice is a practice that is embedded already in the criminal justice system in Canada, and I'm from Canada, and I moved out here to develop this program with the help of this department. And so just for those that are not familiar with the restorative justice program that we are running currently in the department is a victim offender dialogue program. And so it's an opportunity for victims of crime and people who have committed offenses to meet and talk about what happened. And really, it takes individuals who are willing to be accountable, wanting to make amends, and really hear the other party out, even though that might be really difficult. For many, many wonder why somebody would participate in a program like this, but it meets several needs. One, accountability for the offender. The offender finally has an opportunity. Well, this is what has been shared over the years with me in my practice, is that offenders will appreciate the opportunity, the platform to finally be able to be accountable and have a say in terms of what does that look like, and be able to make amends and be empowered by not being told what to do, but being an active participant in what justice means for these two parties. And there's just something really wonderful that happens when you realize that you've made mistakes and now you're given the opportunity to make it right again, at least as much as possible, right? Because sometimes it's not always 100% possible. For victims, it meets many needs. A lot of people, when we talk about what are the victim's needs and what is the number one need, if you ask the public will often say, well, retribution or punishment or accountability or restitution, financial repair. And when you survey, which there was a survey not too long ago on victims of crime across the nation, the number one need is information. Information about where it's at in the system, information about what happened. And so this approach provides those answers because honestly, often the very person that can answer those questions is the person that committed the offense. I was the first person hired with this fund, first person to be hired to develop this restorative justice program with the adult population. We already had something going for our juvenile division, and Chief Daly thought that it would be good to offer these services to adults as well. A lot of people think that restorative justice is only for youth or only for less serious crimes, but studies show at a grand scale that restorative justice actually works best and is most transformative for very serious offenses. And I think that's because there's a lot of trauma that happens, right? And so a lot of victims have a lot of questions in terms of what happened, and also wanting to say, hey, what you did didn't just affect me that day. It affected me much more afterwards. There's all these different consequences that often the offender doesn't think about. We've been running now for 3.5 years. I do not miss the winters from Canada, so 3.5 years of working on this program, and we've completed about over 60 cases. Now we're about at 66 cases, and we've had only 3 reoffenses. So the recidivism rate we are very happy with. We survey every client after completing the process, and they're able to discuss and share what they liked most about the program and what needs were met through this process. And so for this encounter to happen, so first I meet with a defendant and we talk about what happened, and then I reach out to the victims. And different programs do it in different ways. Some programs reach out to the victim first. But in this case, we decide to meet with the defendant and then the victim, and then we talk about different ways of how to repair the harm that was caused. And that can take, as you can imagine, people are different and people react to trauma in very different ways. And so repairing the harm looks very differently in every case. And so it's hard to give you a blueprint of what a process looks like, because it's not a blueprint. Like earlier we heard, it's all about relationships, and it's all about how people are affected by what happened. And so really getting to the root causes of the behavior is something that's very important for victims and for the offender. And getting also to the root of what are the needs that actually surfaced after the crime happened. This is where I use a lot of motivational interviewing when I'm working with the parties. A lot of just getting it come to the surface in terms of what they actually need and how can we address that. And I'm very fortunate. I used to work in an organization where we were a separate stakeholder, where we worked in the courthouse and people would refer to us. In this case, I'm under the umbrella of probation, which gives me a lot of access to information and a lot of resources that the department already has. And so I've noticed that the parties are waiting less time to get connected to some resources in the community, connected to some resources that the department already has. And so already there's a level of satisfaction that I'm noticing that is much higher, and people are getting their needs met quicker. When we first implemented this program, we immediately decided to do it in a very restorative way. We decided to make sure that we included all the parties that were going to be affected by having a program in our county. And so reaching out to the judges, reaching out to the DA's office, reaching out to the public defender's office was crucial for this program to actually be successful. Everybody had to have a stake in it and really make sure that really making sure that this program is tailored to the needs of this specific county. And so as much as I would like to give you, again, a blueprint of how this program works, really it's about going back to your departments, going back to your counties, and figuring out what are the needs of your own community, and how do you have that conversation in a restorative way that you make sure that at the center of it all is serving the people that are most affected by the crime. We decided to work first with diversion level cases, and as well as post-conviction cases. So I am, in terms of the spectrum of the type of cases and offenses that I work with, it's very wide. And so the less serious ones for diversion, and so that works kind of like a diversion program. And so if the parties are satisfied after completing a process, then it's the same outcome than a regular diversion. The charges would then be dismissed. As long as the parties have gone through this process, have shown accountability, and are satisfied with the process and the outcome, then at that point they are dismissed. The charges are dismissed. Post-conviction cases, those are often referred by probation officers. So in having a conversation with a probation officer, sometimes the PO will notice what we talk change talk, or willingness to make amends, or sometimes people will say, I really wish that person knew where I was at today, after a year or two of being working on myself. I really wish that they knew that that's not me anymore. And so that kind of talk kind of flags it for the probation officers, where they can then refer to the program, and then I then assess whether or not the restorative justice approach would be a good fit for their case, because it's not always a good fit. There are cases where restorative justice might not be the answer to that case. And so, I think in terms of the statistics, in terms of the numbers of cases, the level of satisfaction, we're very happy with that. I mean, we recently got a grant to expand our program even more, so I can get some help and get more cases and more victims served, and defendants to really just come to a full circle of just changing their lives around and using that. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Cindy, that's great. Thanks again, CPOC, for allowing us to showcase what we're doing in Marin. I love our restorative justice program. It's just a different way of public safety. And that the outcomes, only 3 people have reoffended out of 60+ cases. I mean, that's public safety. It's just a different way of getting to it. And sometimes the victims feel left out. And it's really important that we continue to serve our victims at the highest level. Thank you, Dave, for talking about training, and certainly Jeff and Kylie talking about the relationship building. And great job, and thank you.
Thank you, Marin County. Next, please welcome to the stage CPOC Secretary, Treasurer, Chief John Keene of San Mateo County.